In business, one thing I've learned is you don't just talk about your company and how great your product is or whatever. You have to look at what are the needs of your client or your customer. What are their pain points? What is it that they're looking for? And how can you position yourself in such a way where you are solving that problem or filling that need? That's how everyone needs to look at things. Otherwise, you're just tooting your own horn and it's just noise. You're just creating noise, and no one resonates with that.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 71 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Didn't really celebrate too much about episode 70 being released, but it was a pretty big milestone. It's a pretty big deal. Getting to 70 is a pretty big step. But as you probably know, I've had my eyes on episode 100 for a while. Looks like I'm on track to be getting to 100 by my birthday. 100 episodes in a year is not too bad if you ask me. That's the plan anyways. But today, I'm here in Tampa, Florida to visit my grandparents. And tomorrow I'm heading to my friend Ryan McGinn's conference here in St. Petersburg. So that should be a great time. Ryan's an expert in men's style and fashion. He makes awesome Instagram stories. He's got a YouTube channel with like 27,000 subscribers. He has over 600 videos. He's an extremely active dude on Facebook. He's got a Facebook group with like 7,000 members. He has a huge email list. And I did an episode with him back in September. It's called Handsome Guy Secrets. Really good stuff. You should go listen to that one. But today, I am doing a different podcast. I'm doing a podcast with my friend Josiah. But if this is your first time joining me here, thank you so much for checking this show out. It means a lot to me. This show is all about having meaningful, transparent conversations and sharing powerful stories, And the best part is you guys get to come hang out with us, be a fly on the wall. And I love hearing from people with all kinds of different backgrounds and experiences. And today I have a very special guest who has lived a very different life than I have. And that is Josiah Quansah. And Josiah is an entrepreneur and real estate investor. He's the founder of Kingdom Acquisitions, a real estate investment company based here in Atlanta. He is a serial entrepreneur with a very diverse business background, which basically has led him to become a very successful investor at just 23 years old. And he's a really amazing guy. He centers his entire business philosophy on providing as much value and service as possible to those around him. And he puts a ton of effort into solving the problem of generational poverty by working with organizations around the city who focus on those issues. And on this episode, we talked all about how he grew up in Italy, his growth as an entrepreneur, how he got into real estate, where he sees the market going, and much, much more. This was an amazing episode, and shout out to our friend Brooke Watson for introducing us. Josiah and I went to high school together, but we didn't really know each other, and Brooke reached out to connect us, and she told me I needed to have Josiah on my show, and she was definitely right. This was a great episode, and I had a lot of fun getting to know Josiah, so without any further ado, please welcome my friend Josiah Quansah. We are live, just like that.
Just like that.
All right, Josiah, how do you say your last name properly?
Quansah. So it's similar to the holiday, but not with a Z. It's Quansah, not Quansah.
I see.
Quansah. Yep.
Any relation to the holiday? Do you celebrate the holiday?
None whatsoever. Yeah. I don't know anything about the holiday. I don't know anyone that celebrates it, but I think it's great that they share a similar name to mine, so I'm all for it.
There we go. Very nice. Well, Josiah, I know your company's called Kingdom Acquisitions, right?
That's right.
Very nice. So typically, I don't know if you listen to any of the episodes, but basically, a lot of times I just try to kind of start out the podcast with letting you tell your story and kind of sharing like where you came from and all that kind of stuff. But before jump all the way back to that, just kind of give people, I guess, like a little in a nutshell of what you do like right now and how you describe yourself nowadays.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you asking. So what I do, I'm involved in the real estate industry, and my company is called Kingdom Acquisitions, and we specialize in real estate investing. And the main strategy that So with real estate investing, there's many ways of doing it. The primary strategy that we're focusing on right now is what's called real estate wholesaling. And so the way I like to describe it is it's almost like arbitrage. It's buying and selling really quickly to get quick turnaround. The reason I believe this strategy is very, very great right now in this market is because it's a very hot market. So things sell very quickly. You're able to, send out a property and it'll sell within 24 hours very quickly. And so we're able to turn deals around extremely fast. And so right now it's been a strategy that's worked very well for us for the past year. And we're looking on expanding to different avenues of investing, the fixing and flipping, buying and holding, larger acquisitions, raising capital, doing bigger projects. But right now, the wholesale aspect, which is the buying and selling of real estate properties within a very short time frame, that has worked very well for us.
That's awesome. That's really cool, man. I feel like a lot of people out there know that there's a lot of money in real estate, but they have no idea how to get in or all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So of course we'll have to talk about how you got into that world. But
we're going to talk.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So to kind of take us back though, like how obviously the Josiah of today, I see you, I'm like, oh, Josiah is this cool guy. He's in real estate. He knows a lot more about real estate than I do, all this kind of stuff. But obviously it wasn't always that way, and obviously you came from very different beginnings. So just to kind of give us like perspective, take us back, like where'd you grow up, like all that kind of stuff.
Great. So here's my story. So I grew up in Italy, actually.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that. I was born in Italy.
What part?
Vicenza, Italy. And the reason I was born there is because, so to go even further back, so my dad, he's actually a minister. He set up a church over there. So we're originally from West Africa, actually. My family, Ghana, West Africa.
Wow.
And they moved to Italy, and they had 3 of us over there. So myself, my older brother, and older sister were born in Italy. My oldest sister was actually born in Ghana. So 3 of us in Italy, 1 of us in Ghana. So we kind of have a diverse kind of background.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, my last guest, her parents were from West Africa, which is crazy.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I just talked to her yesterday. Honestly, I don't know. She didn't mention specifics, but she said her parents are immigrants from West Africa.
Wow, yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people right now that come from West African descent, even if they're not like directly from there. Even people from different countries like Jamaica and things of that nature, they actually trace their roots back to West Africa, and so it's great. A lot of great things have come out of that part of the continent.
That's awesome. So your parents were missionaries. They formed a church in Italy, you said?
Yeah, my dad. Yeah, he pretty much traveled to Italy, and there was a church over there that I guess needed a new minister, a new pastor, and so he kind of took the role, and the church grew, and he was very well respected in the area, and so when we came to America, it was actually a very emotional thing.
Yeah,
because he had a strong connection with the community. There's this very strong, tight-knit Ghanaian community in Italy, believe it or not. You wouldn't expect there to be a strong African community in a country like Italy, but there are pockets where there actually are. So he was well-known, well-respected in the community. And so back in 2001, when we actually moved to America, it was kind of an emotional thing. Everyone at church that day was crying, and I mean, it was tough. But he had to make the decision to better the education and the lives of his kids. And so I have so much respect for him, because it's not easy to pick up your bags and move to a different country that's not your home. Then do it again, with your family this time. So,
of course.
I've just learned so much from my dad, and he's been a huge, huge impact on me and who I am today.
That's amazing. When you guys were in Italy, were you speaking Italian or were you speaking...
Yeah.
Interesting.
The funny thing is, I was probably the best speaker of Italian in my family. And then when I moved here, it's like it kind of died out because we just stopped speaking it. There's no incentive to speak it. They encouraged us to speak English in the home and everything. So it kind of fizzled out. And I'm the type of person, the way my brain works, if I need it, I'll keep it. If I don't need it, it'll kind of just go by the wayside. Yeah. And so it kind of just fizzled out. But I definitely one of the things I want to do is relearn it, because it's a beautiful language. I love it.
Yeah. Did you I was going to say in this area, a lot of Spanish speakers. Do you find yourself able to understand Spanish in that way or not really?
Yeah, so Spanish is very similar to Italian. I took Spanish, from middle school all the way through high school. So I have the basics of it, but, I definitely can't keep up in a real-time conversation with a native speaker. It's very difficult.
Yeah. It's interesting because I went, I don't know, we're friends with Brooke Watson.
Yeah.
I was going to say we should shout her out. She's the reason why that we got connected. What's up, Brooke?
What's up, Brooke? How you doing?
I'm sure she's listening to this. But yeah, so Brooke was actually an inspiration of why I did something interesting. She was an au pair in Italy, and I don't know if you knew this, but she was like a nanny basically for a family over there. And I talked to her. I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." She's like, "You could do that too if you wanted to." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I didn't think guys could do that." And she told me that she knew other guys that did that. So I actually went and lived in Italy for like 3 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and did a similar thing. It was awesome. It was really, really awesome.
What was your favorite part of the experience?
Ooh. It was really cool because I lived with this family that they were pretty well off. They were pretty wealthy.
Oh, okay.
And so they had a lot of really cool properties and houses that were like within their family.
Wow.
And so I got to travel around to a lot of places. One of the coolest places was Siena. Have you ever been to Siena before?
I have not.
It's kind of like a medieval sort of city.
Okay. Wow.
And it's like in Tuscany kind of area. And we got to see like this giant horse race called the Palio. And that was like insane. It was like, I did not expect a horse race to be like that crazy, but people get so into it because like, the way, not to make a long story short, basically like the Palio, the way that they do it is there's like these 16 or 12, they call them contradas, and it's almost like the counties of the area. And so each contrada has their own horse represented in this race. Okay. So people are very like territorial, but it's not like, Falcons versus Panthers where it's like so far away. Yeah. It's like everyone is within this one city, and the way it's like almost broken up like a pie. So like if you're on the west side or you're on the east side, you're on different contradas or whatever. And so everyone gets in like actual fights about this crap. Like, and there was literally like after the race ended, there was people straight up like running into the ring where the horses were racing and just like punching people in the face. Like, it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Wow,
that was probably the most
I not heard of this?
It's insane. There's actually a movie called Palio that's like about that, and it's like I think I've never seen it, but it's like focused around like the racers or whatever. But it's a very like traditional thing, and it's very like brutal because the way that they do it, the horses are not race horses; they're just regular horses, and they just break them. And like and they ride them bareback too.
Oh my goodness!
And so like the horses are not trained to like race. So some of the horses just don't even obey. Like riders get knocked off all the time. Like it's cutthroat. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure that would not fly over here.
yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. There's actually protests outside of like animal rights groups over there and stuff that are mad about it. Kind of like bullfighting in Spain and stuff like that. Yeah. But anyways, that's kind of a side story. But that was one of my most memorable things of Italy for sure.
Wow.
But so you said you moved in 2001. So that was when you were what, like?
I was 6. I was 6 at the time. Yeah.
Nice. So you probably don't really remember a ton from Italy, right?
Yeah, it's not crystal clear, but I do remember some notable things. I do remember the major thing I loved about Italy was the sense of community. It's like you just had such a strong bond with all your community and your neighbors and stuff. Like there's this one lady, she had no affiliation with our family, but she sometimes took us in, me, my brother, my sister, let us, be at her house while we wait to go to school and things like that.
That's cool.
I mean, they're super nice. Everyone there was really nice to us. It was funny because looking back in hindsight, some of the things that they would do and say, it probably would not be taken so well today. Like they used to call me Chocolate. That was like my nickname, right, in school. Because of course, being the only black kid in an all Italian school, you kind of stand out, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was my nickname, and I took it as a playful thing, which it really was. It wasn't malicious in any way. But of course, if you take something like that here, that might be taken offensive. But it's all in the spirit of kind of the sense of community over there.
Yeah, and not to get like too political or anything, but I also think that like when you're a kid and you're like that innocent, especially like in America, I think that, you know, obviously there's this such racial history and like, you know, over there it was probably more of like just like a playful thing, and it wasn't seen as like, oh, you're black, so this is a negative thing. It was just like, you have dark skin, so it's like funny to us, so chocolate, you know, it's like, you know, it's not like it's not like they were trying to be offensive. Probably it was just like the nickname that happened because, like you said,
exactly.
That's kind of it's interesting. I always like to think about that kind of stuff because I think we get too wrapped up in our bubble over here. We don't think globally enough, or we don't open our eyes to like, you know, what's actually happening a lot of times. And obviously that's easy for me to say, just like sitting here. Oh yeah, we don't think big enough, but it's true. I don't think we think about that kind of stuff enough.
Oh, I absolutely agree. You just touched on something that I think is a huge thing. Just the fact that I consider it a blessing coming from a different country, coming from a different perspective. And so once I come here, I have a little bit of a broader sense of things in terms of globally. And so I look at things a little different. I wish everyone could have that. That's why I strongly believe in traveling and, you know, seeing the world and things like that. I know you do a lot of that. That's awesome. I think everyone should strive to get that opportunity to do that because it gives you a broader sense of the world. It's not just the little corner that you were born in or grew up in. You have to understand the world is much bigger than that. It's much bigger than just me and you. It's 7 billion people on this earth, and we gotta have that larger perspective so we can empathize more with people that are not just like us. They might be completely different from us. We have to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. And I think like one of the biggest things that people get trapped up in is this idea of like what's normal and what's not.
Exactly.
And like you tend to think of yourself as what's normal, right? Because that's what you know. But you go to a country where no one looks like you, no one talks like you, know you think like, oh, this is weird. But to them, that's their normal.
Absolutely.
And that's the kind of perspective that I think we need, because you're right. Empathy is one of the biggest. One of the most positive things that you can possess as a human is empathy towards other people. Because if you can break out of yourself and try to bust out of the norms and whatever you think is normal and put yourself in someone else's shoes, that's insanely valuable.
It's one of the most, if not the most valuable skill you can have. It really is. Because once you can see things from someone else's perspective, then you can actually give them value that they're seeking. You can give them what they're looking for. You know, in business, you know, one thing I've learned is you don't talk about yourself. You don't just, you know, talk about your company, how great your product is or whatever. You have to look at what are the needs of your client or your customer. What are their pain points? What is it that they're looking for? And how can you position yourself in such a way where you are solving that problem or filling that need? That's how everyone needs to look at things. Otherwise, you're just tooting your own horn and it's just noise. You're just creating noise, and no one resonates with that. It doesn't work. And I've learned that the hard way. So I'm not just saying things. I've learned this the hard way. I've made mistakes, and it's all been a blessing because I've learned so much from it.
That's true. I love that. So I want to get back to your story for a second. So you moved back to America.
Yep.
Or you moved to America for the first time. Do you remember like that craziness? Like how was that? Like moving to America like that?
Yeah.
It seems like such an insane like life event.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot to adjust to. Different way of doing things, different country completely. You know, when I moved here, I landed here in Atlanta, but actually lived in South Carolina for a few months. It was a part of South Carolina called North Augusta. So there's Augusta, which is in Georgia. Then there's North Augusta, which is in South Carolina. And so I was there for a little while and then moved back to Atlanta, I think either late 2001 or early 2002. And lived in Norcross ever since, basically. And so it's been a lot to adjust to in terms of the culture, going to school where, you're the different person, you're the immigrant, you're the person that can't speak too well in terms of the English language, and just having to adjust to all that. It was very humbling. I mean, when you're a kid, there's not much humbling to do, but it was humbling in its own way. And so it just I always had that chip on my shoulder. Just had to make my way through life just on my own. Not necessarily on my own, but I just always had to figure things out on my own in a way. And so it was good because it made me more resourceful. I was very curious. If I see someone doing something very successfully or well, my natural inclination is to find out how did they do it. If they're doing it, I can do it too. And, once I developed that mindset, then I realized, okay, it doesn't matter where you come from or the situation that you come from or the status you come from. It's all about how can you elevate yourself? How can you improve yourself, better yourself? And, I'm saying this because I didn't start off with very much. My family didn't have much. We came to a new country, not many connections or ties here. We didn't start off with the most advantageous set of cards, right? So it's really not about the hand you're dealt. It's about how you play that hand, right? And so that's really what that experience coming to a totally different country has taught me. I really had the cards stacked against me, but thankfully, because I had good people around me, the right support system and everything, which is truly something I don't take for granted. I was able to, just make my way through life and, get to where I am now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Did you guys speak English at all when you came here, or not really?
Yeah, we spoke English. I mean, I wasn't great at it, but it developed just being around. I'm a sponge, so if I'm around people, I start to absorb and learn different things.
Especially when you're a kid.
Exactly, yeah. So just being around, just going to school, just being around so many different kids from America and stuff, I immediately started picking up the language. The funny thing, when I went to Peachtree Elementary, that's the elementary school I went to when I came here to Norcross. I for some reason didn't have to do the English for second. I think it's called ESOL, English for Speakers of Other Languages, and my brother and sister had to do it, and it was just interesting because we came at the same time. We didn't speak the language too well, but I guess it speaks to the fact that I'm just a sponge. Like, I just pick things up from my environment and I learn very quickly, and so I learned the language pretty well, and that's kind of how that went.
Interesting. Yeah, because also I feel like a lot of when like overseas, especially a lot of like cartoons and stuff like that are still in English, so you kind of still like pick up on that kind of stuff as well. But you said you did speak like a little bit beforehand, like it was taught in school, or like? No,
it was just English is an international language, so you're gonna learn it, you're gonna know how to speak it. It's just back then they spoke it very differently from when you come to America. The accent, the way of pronouncing things, the terms you use for certain things are totally different from what Africans or European people that speak English speak it.
And also because a lot of times over there, when they teach you English, they're teaching you British English.
Exactly.
Because England is much closer.
Yeah, and Ghana was a British colony. Yeah, so a lot of our English is influenced heavily by the British.
Interesting. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I like. See, that's as an American, you think like, oh, American English is normal, British English is weird.
Yeah.
But like British English was first.
Exactly. That's where England, it's not from America. It's not American.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're so full of ourselves, I think, in America. We think too highly.
We're proud. We're proud. We like to claim our territory and make it ours.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So you kind of grew up in America, and you said you're a sponge, you're just learning everything and all this kind of stuff. What were there any like life events in like middle school or high school or anything that kind of like were turning points or anything like that, or anything that was notable?
To be honest, the turning point happened after high school. That's really where the major turning point happened. But throughout elementary, middle, and high school is more so going with the flow. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until after high school that I had to make a change. Partially out of necessity, partially just out of circumstance. But so to be honest, to answer your question, that shift didn't happen during grade school.
Yeah. Most people, I think, are kind of going through the flow at that point. Like, you're kind of just trying to impress your friends. Yeah. Maybe you're in sports or whatever, and you're trying to, get better at that, but nothing like is hugely aspirational that you're exactly. Like, I need to do this or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have pressure to go to college in high school or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the thing about African culture, education is heavily prized, and it's a major aspect of our culture. So that's the whole reason, we came here, just to further our education and things like that. It's huge for my parents, and it was a big deal. But part of my story, and this is why I say the shift kind of happened after high school. So here's what happened. So I actually became a permanent resident in this country in 2015. I graduated high school in 2013. So at that time, I wasn't officially a permanent resident yet. If you understand anything about the immigration system, it's very complex, very complicated, and it's not easy. It's one of the toughest countries to become like a permanent resident and then become a citizen. It's a very tough process. And so they made some mistakes. The U.S. made some mistakes with our documentation and things of that nature. So this has been a major part of my story. It's not just a matter of, we came here and everything was gravy. We actually had some battles we had to fight. And I'm able to say this now because thankfully we were able to overcome all that, but it was really a very trying time. I graduated high school. When I actually was accepted to Georgia Tech, I wanted to be an engineer my whole life. It was, something I was really wanting to do at the time. And, when I got accepted, I was so excited. All my friends, or a few of my friends, were going there. And so it was like going to be the greatest thing ever. And then come to find out, there was a law or some kind of new rule or regulation where certain schools in Georgia just could not take anyone that is not at least a permanent resident, or there's some specifics of it where I was basically disqualified. And so no matter, even if I, said, hey, I'll pay the out-of-state tuition, I'll do all this, no, it just wasn't going to work. So I was pretty much, they took back they took back the acceptance, or they couldn't enroll me essentially. So I made all my plans around going to Georgia Tech, and so it was kind of like a shell shock for me. And I was like, okay, well, it was devastating at the time, but I got over it, and I just figured something out. And I said, okay, let me go to community college, let me figure things out, and maybe it'll work out later down the line. So I went to GPC, Georgia Perimeter College. Went there for a few years on and off. That was really where the turning point happened, because now the school that I wanted to go to pretty much was out of the question. I had to figure some things out. Was I going to be an engineer? What was I going to do? And unfortunately, one of my friends sent me an ebook. He sent me an ebook about real estate. Just out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't have any expectation whatsoever. And I was open-minded at the time. You're in that position. It's like, you're open to new things. It's like, maybe engineering was not what I was meant to be. So I just read the ebooks. They were very eye-opening because throughout my whole life, I had never been exposed to anything like it. Investing, real estate, buying assets, things like that, entrepreneurship, business ownership. It wasn't something I was taught. I didn't learn it in school. I didn't learn it from my parents. I didn't learn it from anywhere. And so this was my first exposure to it. This was in 2014, right? And so I decided, what, this is something I need to take seriously. I can't just, let this slip by, because a lot of people, opportunity comes their way. But so here's my definition of poor: passing over opportunity repeatedly. Right. And so if an opportunity comes and you pass over it, that's how you stay poor. And so I realized, if I want to change my situation, if I want to change my story, if I want to change the legacy of my family, I'm going to have to take advantage of some opportunities. And so this was one of them. And so I took the real estate thing seriously. It was eye-opening because my whole life I thought to do real estate, the only way to do it is by being a real estate agent or just being rich and being able to buy a bunch of properties, things of that nature. But these books kind of opened my eyes to totally new ways of doing it. And So that's how I learned about the real estate wholesaling industry. And me and my good friend, the one that sent me the ebook, we decided, all right, let's do this together. We partnered up. We started working together. We went to seminars, went to meetups and everything. We set up a company, got the LLC and incorporation, everything done. And when you're a newbie entrepreneur, you don't really know what you're doing. You just kind of...
And you're excited.
Yeah, exactly. It's all excitement. It's all just this big dream is coming to life. But you don't really know what it takes to be successful as an entrepreneur. And so we didn't really take enough action. We didn't do the right things. We didn't take the right steps to actually get to where we wanted to be. We just kind of, got into the rah-rah of, having business cards, having a website, doing all these things. I see a lot of people get stuck there, and that's where we were at the time.
The business cards are like,
yeah,
you feel
the business
legit.
card is like, yeah, I'm official now. I got a business card.
I went on Vistaprint and got some for free.
Vistaprint. Oh my goodness, man. That's where we were. We were in that phase, and there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
A lot of people start off in that phase, but it wasn't until I realized, okay, we haven't made any money. Mm-hmm. Okay, what are we doing?
Money.
Yeah, we spent money. Oh yeah, for sure. And at the time, that little amount of money was a lot. And so it wasn't until 2015 that I realized, you know what, I might have to take some time to actually learn and figure this business out from the inside out before I actually, start doing my own thing. And so 2015, I had the opportunity to work with an investor here in Atlanta, and he reached out to me over social media. We met up, everything went well, and so we started working together for a year and a half. And so working under his wing, learned a lot during that time, closed several deals. So that was my first real experience actually doing deals and making money in the business. And so I learned things from the ground level up. And so 2016, that's when I decided to start my own company, Kingdom Acquisitions. That was October 2016, because I had done deals, I'd seen kind of what it takes to get a deal done. And, I was ready to build my own company, build my own empire. And so with some help from my brother's name is Stefano, by the way, he's been a great help, a great support. He put some money together with me, and we started the company, got it going. And January came, we started doing deals, and the whole year we just started taking off. And it's just been a great year for us. 2017 was a great year, and I'm just ready to take things to the next level now. And so that's kind of my story, my progression through business. And I've learned so much. I made a lot of mistakes, and it's only made me better. It's only made me stronger and wiser. And so my best advice to anyone that's listening that wants to get into business or do anything meaningful or great in life, take some time and learn from someone that's doing it. Learn from a mentor. Learn from someone that has been there, done that, because that's going to be the best way to accelerate your progress. I've done the whole trial and error thing. I've done the whole, just go with the flow thing. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It's not the most efficient use of your time. Our life is very limited. I have to say, let's be real. We have a short time here on this earth. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that. You have to realize time is the most valuable asset we have. And so take that very seriously, and find out how you can eliminate any things that will be not the most effective use of your time, and eliminate that by finding mentors, finding people that already have paved that path, and just follow in their footsteps until you can create your own. And then from there, just take it to the moon.
Definitely. I agree 100% with that. One thing that I mentioned, the girl I did a podcast with yesterday, Maya, one thing that she was talking about was she dropped out of college to pursue her own business, and her parents are obviously not super pleased with that when it happened. But one thing that she brought up that I thought that was fascinating that I never thought about was something that you kind of just mentioned, like, if you go under a mentor, like, it may take a while, but you're going to learn a lot.
Oh yeah.
And typically if you're working with a mentor, they're not like, you're not like paying that person. You're probably actually working for that person or working under that person. Yeah. You might be working for free. You might be working for very little with that mentor, and it might take a while, but you're going to get like insane value from it. Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, you might also like there's certain courses that you can take that maybe are like really expensive, but you're learning directly from the people that like know exactly what to do, and they'll lay it out so you can kind of accelerate your progress.
Yeah.
And she was saying that's one of the things that she saw that was like an issue with the public education system and the college system is it's very expensive and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
Which is like, she's like, I either want to spend a lot of money and I can kind of take the rapid way, or I can take a long time but learn from someone and do it correctly and it not cost me really anything because I put in the effort. And I was like, wow, I never thought about that. Like you either like that makes so much sense though. It's like either choose to like, if you've got the money, then like spend it to like accelerate your learning. But if you don't have the money, like learn from a mentor, like work for free, work for, little or whatever, so you can learn the ropes and then you can go off and like do something on your own. Like that's super valuable.
Yeah, and you have to understand the reason why it's that way is because the education system was something that started at a time where it was normal to be a factory worker and things of that nature. That's what it kind of trained us to become, whether it's just laborers or very technical things. But the thing is, we're moving towards a society where a lot of those old roles have been automated. I mean, I was in Atlanta Tech Village last night at this event talking all about this stuff, automation, what jobs are going to disappear, what jobs are going to start being created, which most of them we don't know yet. And this is something we have to take seriously. The world is changing, but the education system has kind of lagged behind. It's kind of stayed the same for centuries.
Yeah. And it takes like 10 years for anything to actually change. Like for anything to actually make a difference. Same thing in medicine too. Is like lots of studies are coming out, but like the actual practices of doctors and stuff and what they're prescribing is not changing, even though what's coming out in modern stuff is not changing. Same thing in school. You're totally right. And like we're just taught, sit in the chair, listen to what the teacher says, do what you're told. That's kind of what you're taught at like an office job or a cubicle job or a factory job. Like sit in your chair, do what you're told, clock out when the bell rings. Like that's just like kind of what you're taught.
Yeah, and I'm a big supporter of formal education. I believe in it. I've taken time off school myself to do entrepreneurial things, but I went back to school this semester. Actually, I'm at Georgia State right now studying finance.
Nice.
And because I do believe in formal education, but you have to understand that's not the end all be all. Beyond formal education, you also have to self-educate. You have to have mentors. You have to have real world experience, because formal education, what it is, it teaches you structure, it teaches you the foundation, the basic framework of things, but you're not gonna become a doctor or a good doctor just right out of med school. That's not when you learn to be a doctor. You learn to be a doctor during your residency, during actual hands-on experience, because it's natural. I mean, it's not a big shock, because naturally our brains are trained, our brains are designed to learn that way. I read this book called Mastery by Robert Greene, and it talks all about this. The way our brain learns is through the best way of learning is through apprenticeship, learning under someone that's a master. I mean, it used to be where you had to spend years and years and years under a master before you could even do a certain trade or skill, because that's how you best learn. That's how you master a skill. But now it's more so go to school, get a piece of paper, go out and, be in charge of things that affect the lives of many. That's not how it should work. We need to be learning from masters, but formal education is still important. I still believe in it. I'm a strong supporter of it. I just feel like it's kind of lagging behind, and it's doing a lot of people a disservice. So my view on it is, if you're not sure what you want to do in your career and in the future or in school, don't start school yet. That would be a major mistake. It's almost like burning money, because most people end up changing their majors. Most people end up going into a different field than what they studied in school. Why would you do that? Why waste tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on an education that's not going to be an asset to you? Because the way you have to look at education, it's an investment, it's an asset. You have to look at it as something what an investment is putting money aside, or putting something aside, sacrificing something, so that later down the line you can have a long-term gain. And so if you're putting something or sacrificing something now and you're not getting a gain, that's not an investment. That's not an investment. You're throwing money away. That's what you're doing.
Exactly.
And so it takes a lot more wisdom right now in today's day and age to really make the right decisions. It's not like you can just go to school, get a degree, and be successful anymore. It doesn't work that way anymore. It used to work. The world has changed. So now you have to be on the cutting edge. You have to be, you have to have a lot of experience before you even get a job now. It's like a degree doesn't cut it anymore. Some companies are even major company. I've heard one major accounting firm, they stopped the requirement for having degrees. I mean, of course, they're still going to look at someone with a degree, but it's like it's not a requirement anymore because they realize the studies have shown it has little correlation to someone's real world success. And so while I strongly believe in education and in terms of formal education, that's not the only way of learning. There has to be more than that. There has to be that mentorship, the real world hands-on experience, things like that. That's really where you learn the most, and you'll learn in a much deeper way. You learn through application, not just through memorization. That's not truly learning.
Exactly. And the thing is, at the end of the day too, like employers are hiring on soft skills now more than ever. Oh, yeah. Like if you can be personable, if you can be coachable, if you can be teachable, that's way more valuable than just being able to get A's and B's on a test. Like, and we all know, I can think personally back in school of the kids that got A's and B's that I would never want to work with. Yeah. Like, cause they were annoying. Like, you know what I mean? Or they did not have good social skills or whatever. Yeah. So the proof of the grades doesn't always, indicate, like you said, real world applications. And one thing, I don't know. Are you familiar with Ty Lopez?
Oh yeah. Ty Lopez. Yeah, he's
love
he's
him
everywhere.
Or hate him.
Yeah.
Love him or hate him. Yeah. I listened to a podcast with him yesterday, and one thing he was talking about was, a lot of people look at like what he does. Some people say it's a scam or whatever. He offers like online courses and stuff like that. Like, it's a scam. Most people don't succeed. And he's like, well, most of the biggest scams on earth are right under our noses, but we don't classify them as scams. Exactly. Like, what is a scam? Like, a scam is something you put money into and you think it's going to benefit you, and then it doesn't. Or you put money into and it not only does it not benefit you, but it actually, you're worse off at the end of the day. And one thing that he said is, on all my courses, I have a money back guarantee. If anyone feels like they didn't get the value out of it, they can get a refund. College, there's no refund.
That's a good point. There really is no refund.
There's an investment made. There's a huge time and money investment, but there is no refunds.
And you can't file bankruptcy on it, right? Mm-mm. It's crazy.
Nope. It's very, very crazy, and it's actually kind of sickening when you really boil it down. And I don't want to get too conspiracy theory with it because I don't think there is like a massive conspiracy happening, but I think it's just the acts of foolish people. And not looking at the reality of a lot of the situation. And we don't need to harp on college education the whole time, of course, but I think it's just an interesting topic because there are a lot of young people listening to this podcast, people that are still in school, people that are going to go to school. And, it's better. It's good to have a balanced perspective and hear from people that, like you said, you're still in school, but you have advice like, just because you're in school right now, you also need to be self-educating. You also need to be pursuing things outside of that and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
One thing you mentioned was that you got a mentor and you were working with a mentor. Yeah. And I think a lot of people struggle with like, well, I'm sitting here, I don't know where to find a mentor. I don't like how did that happen? How did you stumble upon a mentor? How did you get working with someone like that?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So attracting mentors is a very important skill everyone needs to learn because that's what it is. It's attracting them. You don't chase mentors. You don't track them down and, harass them and bombard them with emails and messages. That's coming off the wrong way. And, I learned this from this very successful person I met. He basically told me when you're dealing with mentors, you don't want to treat them as if they're some kind of God figure. That's the wrong way to do it. That's making them feel like you expect so much out of them, and it just makes them uncomfortable. No, like, how do you feel when someone approaches you and praises you and overhypes you and stuff? It's like, I'm just a regular guy. It just makes you feel kind of weird. You can't have a true relationship with someone like that. You want to treat mentors as if they're your best friend. Mm-hmm. That's really what you want. Those are the best mentorship. And so this very successful guy I'm telling you about, what he told me is that when someone is your quote unquote mentor, the formal mentor where they're like some kind of God figure or whatever, they might be at dinner with someone, business meeting or something, and you call them and they'll pick up, they'll be like, oh, sorry, I'm busy right now. I'm in a meeting. I'll get back to you later. Right. That's what they'll do. it makes sense, right? But now if you're their friend, you're their best friend, best buddy, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm over here at dinner. Come through, yeah. Let's grab some drinks. Let's grab some food, whatever. That's what they're gonna do. And so you want to come across more as a friend, not as a mentee or some kind of student or whatever. It just makes them, that works if that's kind of, if they're formally saying that, they're doing a mentorship or, they have a course or something, that's different. But when they're just a regular, someone that just happens to be successful, you want to come off with more as a friend. And that's the best way to do it. And so for me, how did I attract a mentor? It's all about what you put out. It's all about how you present yourself, because people have to, we naturally, our brains, we have to make value judgments right from the get-go in milliseconds, right? And so if someone sees what you're putting out and it's not so great, it's not that great stuff, they're not going to have time to even get to know you, because they're going to have to make a decision in a split second. Do I want to, because like I said, time is a limited resource. So do they want to risk that limited resource on someone that is not putting out the best things? The probability of them being someone worth my time is very low. Do I want to even do that? Most people are not going to waste their time. So you want to make sure you're putting out good stuff through your social media, through how you present yourself. You don't want to, you just don't want to come off as someone that's just not serious. You want to show that you're passionate about what you do. At the time you could see in my social media, even though I was kind of a newbie, but I was doing something related to real estate in some way. And so because it showed that I was at least trying to get somewhere or do something, it just sparked something in, the mentor to approach me, and he had the opportunity, I had the desire, had the hunger. And so that marriage of those two traits, it just kind of came together and things worked out. So you do want to come across as someone that is passionate about what you do. And naturally, everything will kind of fall in its place.
Definitely. I totally love what you said about being like a friend rather than like a worshiping, treating them like an idol. Because I think also like the goal of like a mentor is obviously, you should have that person be helping you and training you and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like you want to get to where they are. Yeah. And if you're constantly worshiping their position, like you're never going to actually achieve what they're at, because you're like looking at it as this high and mighty thing that's like almost unachievable. You're like subconsciously putting yourself in a spot where you will never achieve what they have. Because it's almost like, for example, someone like Justin Bieber or something. Yeah. His friends are not the types of people that go to his concerts. Yeah. He would not be like besties with like the people that are going to his shows. Those are like screaming little teenage girls. Yeah. And that's like a weird dynamic. I am not jealous of that at all, because I think that would be super, super weird to always have that. But like, it's cool if, someone who appreciate, like for example, this podcast or whatever. It's sometimes people message me or whatever, and they do treat it as like this crazy like idolized kind of thing, which is kind of weird to me. But then some people are like very friendly, very like on a friend level about it. And I am way more receptive and way more like, oh yeah, do you even want to be a guest on the podcast? But if they approach it as like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. But then they ask me like, hey, could I be a guest on your podcast? That'd be so cool, Andrew. Oh my gosh, you're so awesome, or whatever. Like that'd be really weird. I'd be like, nah, this is strange. I'm not into it.
Yeah, you just don't want to scare people away.
Exactly.
Just be natural, be normal.
Yeah, and another thing that you said is like on social media, be presenting yourself as someone that's like knowledgeable in that space or whatever.
Not even knowledgeable, just passionate.
Yeah,
just, you're working towards something. People are very. It's all about telling your story. It's all about the story you're telling. What kind of story are you telling to the world? And that's what people really resonate with. It's not about saying, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's about, okay, where are you coming from? Where are you trying to get? And then they'll find out, okay, how can I place myself in your life to get you to where you want to get? Yeah. You want to tell that story constantly. And so you don't have to, you can, if you're not an expert or not knowledgeable about something, be honest about it. Don't pretend like you're the greatest expert on a field that you're not, because that's going to shoot you in the foot down the line when everything is going to be revealed eventually. So you don't want to come across as someone that's just a pretender. I've been there. I've tried the fake it till you make it thing, but honestly, it doesn't really. It works. It does work. Let me be honest. It does work, but only to a certain extent. Once you get in front of real players, real people in the industry that are actually doing things, you're not even going to be able to keep up in the conversation with them because you're not doing what they're doing. You haven't built the right habits yet. Yeah.
I was going to say the conversational part of it is so key. Like, for example, if let's say I was trying to get into like cryptocurrency or something, big hot topic right now. Like my brother, for example, he's like studying that stuff like day in, day out. He could hold a conversation with somebody that like wants to talk about that stuff. But for me, for example, if I was just sitting here like, oh, I want to get a mentor in cryptocurrency because I think it's a good investment, but I know nothing about it, and I try to go out and start talking to people about it. In a second, they're going to realize I haven't even researched it for 5 seconds. I don't even know what I'm talking about. They start talking about certain things, and I look clueless. Like you've got to also show that you're at least trying to put in effort and trying to learn the space and trying to, be a part of that. Whatever type of community or whatever type of business you're getting into, at least know the lingo, at least know like kind of what you're talking about, be able to hold a conversation about that kind of type of stuff, because if not, like you said, you're just going to be, everything will be revealed and they'll realize like, okay, this guy's not even serious. He hasn't even read a single book, or he hasn't even read a single thing about this. He's just trying to mooch off me or whatever.
Yeah, you have to prepare yourself. Elevation without preparation is not a blessing. It's really not. If the opportunity comes, the opportunity you're looking for, but you haven't prepared yourself, you're going to fall flat.
It's like lottery winners.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. Great example, because the thing about money is it is only a reflection of who you are in a way, right? It's not to say that if you have a lot of money, you are a great person. It has nothing to do with that. It's about, okay, if you've made a lot of money, let me change that, because you can have a lot of money, but you didn't earn it. But if you've earned a lot of money, it's because of certain things that you have done, certain actions you've taken, certain habits you've built that are conducive to making money. That's all it means. Let's say you're a teacher, you're teaching people, you're impacting lives, and you're having a massive positive impact on the world, but the paycheck might not correlate with it, because that is just not what the framework of being a teacher is conducive to, right? You might not become a millionaire off being a grade school teacher. That's just not how the world works, right? And so, but I say this to say that we have to change our understanding of how money works. It's not about the money. It's not about being rich or having a ton of money. It's about, okay, what value or what impact are you having on the world? Money does help. It does allow you to do more things, gives you more choices. And so I do strongly believe that no matter what you do things that are meaningful and you're passionate about, and also have something that you do that generates enough income to fund your passion and allows you to do bigger things with it and impact the world more. You have to do both. You can't just only do the thing that you're passionate about and have no financial or economic way of improving it or growing it. I mean, you can, but you're not going to reach your full potential. The world we live in is a capitalistic world. Money is a big factor in it. So you have to take that seriously. And so I say this to say, so if we give everyone in the world $1 million, right? If we gave everyone in the world $1 million, would all our problems be solved? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. What would happen actually is the rich would make more money. They'll get rich again or get richer. The poor, typically, not generalizing, but in general, they would kind of get poor again. Just to be real with you, because, and it's not to say that there's nothing wrong with them. It's just the mindset. Yeah, exactly. It's a mindset thing. They haven't developed the right skill sets or habits that might be conducive to earning money, or they might not be in the right framework or in the right, field or industry or whatever. That's all it is. That's all it is. And so the way we have to look at money is it's really just it's a tool to achieve more things and to make the world a better place, but it can also be misused. It's neither good nor bad. It's all about how you use it. And so when you treat it that way, you're going to respect it a lot more. And the reason I say this is because I see so many people that they get caught up in their passion and they forget that certain things in this world are going to require money, certain obligations, certain, ways that you could have been improving or advancing yourself are going to require money, but you're foregoing that by focusing solely on pursuing your passion. You have to definitely pursue your passion because that gives you life. It gives you meaning. It gives you purpose in life. That's huge. And also find a way to build the economic side of it as well, build the business side of things, and have it generate income for you as well, because you got to have both if you want to have the maximum impact.
That makes so much sense, man. Yeah, like a lot of people just don't focus on the money making side, unfortunately. Yeah. And I think a lot of people unfortunately associate making money with evil, which is messed up. But I think once you open yourself to the idea that money is not evil, it's a tool to get you where you need to go. That's where people really need to get to. An interesting thing I heard the other day was that they can actually chart they found that in America about $70,000 a year is like the breaking point of like where you need to be in order to be like quote unquote happy with where you are financially. It's kind of interesting because they've realized that they can like chart people's happipiness based on how much money they make up to $70,000 a year. Anything over $70,000 a year, it's based on other factors. But like it is interesting how a person that's making $30,000 a year, they have a much different quality of life than someone who's making $70,000 a year. Even though $70,000 a year to $100,000 a year might be that same gap of money, but it's like the person who's making $70K just has like a lot more like freedom and flexibility and different things, opportunities in America. I just found that like really interesting the other day. Yeah. Because like you said, it's like if you have $1 million is so much money. Like if you had $1 million a year or $1 million, you just handed it to you, that wouldn't fix all your problems immediately, of course. But like, I think a lot of people with the wrong mindset, like you said, like a quote unquote poor mindset is like, oh, I've got this $1 million. It's burning a hole in my pocket. I need to go spend it on a Lamborghini, or I need to go spend it on this, that, and the other. And I think that people who have a value first mindset or a longevity mindset, they're thinking of how can I make this last. That's what you want, how you want to be thinking about it.
Yeah, that's the key. There's two different types of people. There's short-term thinkers and then there's long-term thinkers. The long-term thinkers win every single time in the long run. Right? Short-term thinkers might have some quick wins here and there, but in the long run, they're going to get blown away by the long-term thinkers. So you always want to be a long-term thinker. Plan, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. Where do you want to be then? Where do you want your future generations to be with your kids, your grandkids? You have to think like that, because that's what the great people in the world do. They think generationally. They think decades down the line. And the problem with and I'm saying this because I come from a place where there wasn't much. It was scarcity. It was just not very much in my life. And so I've seen both sides. I've seen when, what it is when I don't have anything and when I have something, right? And what I realized is that when I had nothing, it was actually, it didn't have anything to do with what I actually had. It was all in my mind. It was all in my heart. It was me. I had to make a change about myself. I had to change my habits, the way I look at things, the way my perspective was. Like now I can lose everything. I can go to zero and be totally broke. I'll still be happy. Back then, when I did have zero, when I had actually a negative bank account and my credit score tanked 200 points, when I was there, it was like the most devastating thing ever because of my mindset. But now if that happens, I wouldn't be bothered, because I realized that it's not about what you have. It's about who you are. It's about what's in here. And so I've worked so much on myself that now it's like the mindset is not, okay, so I lose everything. This sucks. This is terrible. I'm depressed. No, that's not the mindset anymore. The mindset is, what can I do now to get back on my feet, get back to where I was, or even better, right? What can I do now? What next? Because the truth is, I have more enjoyment in the chase than the actual destination. It's all about the thrill of the chase for me. That's why I'm in business, because the way my business works, it's always chasing a new deal, always chasing something new, and it's fun for me. It's exciting. It's not the money is just a byproduct of the fun that I have doing this. And so we have to change our perspective and the way we look at things. Being broke, being poor, that's a blessing, in my opinion. I've been there, and it's been the best thing that could have happened to me, because if I had not been there, I wouldn't know what to do when I'm there. Like if I started off, with millions of dollars and I lost it all, I'll be devastated, because there would be no way for me to climb back out of it, because I never learned the skills it takes. And so now, because I've worked on myself, now I know what it takes to make money with nothing, with no money, with no connection, no relationship, no nothing. And so that just gives me such a better outlook on life. It's like nothing can really phase me anymore at this point. Just because you sometimes have to be broken. Sometimes you really have to be broken. You have to hit rock bottom to really change your perspective on the world. And sometimes rock bottom is the best foundation to build on. So if you're at rock bottom right now, it's not the end of the world. It's only the beginning. It's only the beginning. It can only go up from here. So look towards your goal. Look towards where you want to be and keep working towards it. That's where you'll find your fulfillment and your sense of pride and happiness in life. It's not about getting to the destination. You can have all the fancy cars and, money in the world and mansions and stuff. You're still not, if you haven't made yourself a happy person inside, you're not going to be happy when that stuff comes. You just won't. Like you were saying, that 70K thing, that the reason that works is because, at 70K, you kind of have made enough where you can pay off your debts, you can afford your bills and things of that nature. You can raise kids and stuff typically. And once those, basically, you only need, money affects happiness only to the extent that you're warding off the debt collectors or, obligations like that stress you. You're warding off the negative stress.
Exactly.
That's the only thing. But after that, it doesn't create any new happiness.
Yeah.
It only creates more it really creates more problems.
It gets you to like zero. It gets you to like a baseline. Like you said, it doesn't put you in the negative.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
You don't have the collectors, you don't
Perfect.
have all these problems with it. It's like, okay, now I'm in a comfortable spot, 70K, it's a good amount of money. Lots of people would be very jealous to be here. But it's not like to the point where you're living in mansions and you're balling out of control or anything like that. But you're like at that baseline, and then what do you do with it? That's what's going to really move the needle. Anything more over that, anything positive.
Exactly.
I was going to mention, of course, like we haven't even really talked about real estate at all. So let's talk about real estate. Let's talk about what you got into and why it intrigued you so much, because you said you got this ebook, talked about real estate, and it just like blew your mind and you had to get into it. So what was that like aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, real estate is like how I'm gonna make it or whatever? Yeah,
and so I'm glad you you brought back the real estate, because I was totally on a different planet now.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Let's go back to real estate. Real estate, it's a beautiful industry. Real estate has created more millionaires than anything else. It is the one thing that has created more millionaires than any other vehicle. It's the best wealth creating vehicle in the world. And I say this just to give you perspective on how powerful real estate is. You can go from nothing and become something through real estate. Now, I'm just making it sound all, nice and gravy, but it's not the easiest industry. It's a very tough industry, actually. But the thing about it, like I was saying, it's all about who you become. It's all about who you are inside. And the thing that real estate does is it teaches you certain things that make you virtually like unstoppable and unbreakable. Because once you learn how real estate works and how to make money in real estate, no matter what the economy does, you can actually make money in any economy. Up economy, down economy. That's what most people don't realize this. Real estate can teach you things that you can do, creative strategies that you can implement even when the economy tanks. And so while everyone's getting laid off and losing their jobs and being devastated, terrible, terrible thing, real estate investors are still making money. Actually, usually they're making more money during the down market.
Everything's on sale.
Exactly. It's just a sale. That's all it is. You make money when you buy. So that's when everything's on sale. So they're making the most money long term during those crashes. So I say this just to give you an understanding of how important and powerful real estate is. I honestly believe every single person needs to learn something about real estate. It doesn't have to be what I do. There's so many. Real estate has something for everyone. You can be an agent. You can be, a passive investor where you just buy properties, rent them out. You can be, an active investor where you buy and fix them up and flip them, add some kind of value to them. You can be a developer. You can develop things from the ground up. You can be so many things in real estate. You don't have to just do what you see on TV or what you see friends doing. There's something for everyone. And so no matter what you do, learn something about real estate, because it's not about making money. It's about building something for the future generation, right? You want to you want to acquire assets that will later down the line benefit your future generations. It's not just about us or me or you. It's about who's coming after us. And what I've realized is people that stay poor, or families that have stayed poor generationally, is because there has been no inheritance or very little inheritance passed on to the future generations. That's been a huge indicator of poverty, generational poverty. And so if we want to be serious about solving that, we need to teach people how to be owners, how to be investors and own assets, income producing assets, and not just how to buy liabilities. What you see on TV is just commercials throwing things at you to buy things that are liabilities. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. And so we need to start teaching people, how do you become a person that instead of buying liabilities, you're buying assets consistently throughout your whole life. And eventually, once you're gone, those assets are still there. Those assets are still going to benefit your future generations. And that's been the major shift in my thinking, my mindset. It's not just, how can I make some money now? It's about, how can I invest in assets that can set my family up for success in generations to come. And so that's why I strongly believe in real estate. It's a real asset. It's a real thing. It's not just, piece of paper. It's like actual land. And as you know, they're not making any more of land. They're not making any more of it.
That's very true.
Yeah. So you want to grab your share of the pie.
There's a volcano, something happens in the ocean or something. But
I mean, even then, it's still something there. So it's like you want to grab your share of the pie while it's still here. And so, and I mean, real estate, believe it or not, is extremely undervalued, very undervalued. The reason I say that, here's why I say that, because look at the stock market, look at, the open market where companies can put out their stocks and anyone can just come in and buy portions of their companies. Real estate it's an old industry. It's very old. You can't do that with real estate just yet. I think there are some companies that are starting to implement the more stock market like approach where many people can start investing in one thing. But for the most part, right now it's either you're an individual buying a property, or you're an entity like a LLC or a corporation that's buying the asset. Maybe you have multiple shareholders, whatever. But for the most part, real estate investing is very ancient. It's a very ancient industry. It's not like you can just buy a piece of every house, a little share of it. But
I buy 1 square inch of this house, 1 square inch of this house. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Exactly. But that's about to change with the new technology that's coming out. You mentioned cryptocurrency, blockchain technology. That is going to change the game once it starts to really be implemented for real estate, because now you're not
like
just
second wave, third wave is going to be crazy.
Exactly. It's like you're going to be able to buy pieces of each neighborhood or each city or whatever. You're going to be able to buy pieces of property, not just buy the whole thing. That's going to make the property values rise dramatically, because now it's more liquid. It's not like you have to buy it, then you have to list it again and to sell it and wait months or whatever. No, you can just buy it and sell it instantaneously. And that's where we're headed. That's where the future is. So right now is the best time to get into real estate before that changes. Because that's going to really get people by surprise.
Yeah. That's something I hadn't even thought about. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think there's a lot of people listening that they just might have had their mind blown a little bit, because I never thought about that either. One thing that you mentioned, of course, is assets versus liabilities. That's one thing that I learned for the first time when I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's one of my favorite books. It changed my mindset so much.
Likewise.
But yeah, like, I love how you broke that down, because a lot of people, they think that they're buying an asset, like, I'm buying this car, this is my asset, it's a store of value. But really, it's probably going to take money out of your pocket long term, or even short term, because as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's worth less. You're having to buy gas for it constantly. You're having to pay for it to get cleaned. You're having to pay for the maintenance, new tires, new wheels, new brakes, all that. Cars are designed to break apart and fall apart over years, and by the end of it, you might get a couple $1,000. Same thing with even certain houses. Like, if you buy a house and you live in it, it's going to end up costing you money. But if you have it set up where you're renting that space out, or you're buying it, holding it to sell it or whatever, it can become an asset. And
exactly.
So what types of assets and things do you look for in your real estate business? Like, what types of properties are you looking for?
Awesome question. So right now, my main, my bread and butter, the things that I really look for properties in areas that are appreciating and improving significantly. Like, it could be areas close to the city where I know there's certain developments that are coming to the city that are going to make the values rise dramatically. I'm trying to get in now, and that's when you're going to get the best deals, because here's the secret. Here's the secret sauce, right? You want to look at what is the difference in perceived value? What's the difference in perceived value in the property between the seller and the buyer, right? In areas where the values are rising, the person that has lived there for 20, 30 years, they know that in their whole childhood, in their whole lifetime, it's been kind of trash. It's been the hood. It's been, the place where there's a lot of crime and a lot of negative things associated with it, right? But to the outside investor looking in, they're looking at, oh, they're building this new stadium here. They're building this new development here. I want to get in before the values rise. So they're looking in the future. Most people look behind and they look in the past. And so there's a difference in perceived value. The person that is there and, all they know is that this is the hood, their perceived value is all the way down here. The person that is looking at it is like, this area is about to boom because this new development is coming here. So their perceived value is up here. This difference in perceived value is where you make your money. And so now it's not even, you don't want to look at it as, oh, you're taking advantage of someone that doesn't really, know much about the market. But the thing is, the way I approach things is I always educate people when I'm dealing with them in business. I always educate them, I let them know, hey, I'm very interested in your property. This area is really appreciating. I mean, a lot of good things are coming here. And so I'm looking to, acquire properties here before the area gets too expensive and things of that nature. So they know the direction things are headed. But in their mind, they still don't value what they have. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And so you can tell someone how great their area or their neighborhood is, but if all they know is that this place has been, the hood, the ghetto, this place is terrible or whatever, if that's all they've known their whole life, they're still not going to value it. You know what I mean? So I always try to make people aware of what's going on before I even enter into a business transaction. And then in that regard, and of course I'm an investor, so I'm looking at things from a financial standpoint. I always try to break down my numbers, why I'm coming to you, offering you this price. And, you might go look on the market, you see your house might be, I'm offering, let's say 100K, and you look on the market and you see things going for 150, but I'll break it down to you. I'll be like, well, yes, that house is going for 150, but did you know they're paying a realtor commission on that? Did you know they had to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in repairs to get to that point? Did you know the amount of stress and headaches they had to go through due to buyers coming in and falling out and things of that nature, trying to secure financing and all those things? There's so many things that go on behind the scenes that people don't see when they see these numbers. I always try to break it down to them like, hey, I'm an investor. I'm in it to make a profit. I'll be honest with you. I'm buying your property with the end goal to make a profit on it. But I'm going to be honest with you and be transparent and let you know this is what's going on. This is the value of your house in its current state, in its current condition, because most of the properties we buy need work. They need a lot of renovation typically. We just got one under contract that is falling, like it's almost falling apart. It needs probably 100K in repairs. But those are the types of properties that we look for, because those are the properties that need the value added the most. Those are the properties bringing down the values of the neighborhood, and they need to be revitalized to bring up the values. So we go for those because we know they have the most value add, they're the most profitable, and they bring up the neighborhood values the most. And so everyone wins in the end, right? Now, this is going to get into a very philosophical discussion about gentrification and the effects of it. I was about to bring that up, yeah. Because that's a huge thing, and I strongly do think that gentrification has some side effects, some negative effects on the actual people living there. Because you think about it, it's like, the people living there, they have a community, tight-knit community. Now external people are coming in, buying the properties, the value goes up, so the taxes go up. Now the people that live there, have a certain income level, they can't afford the taxes anymore, and now they have to move and relocate somewhere else. And now they're moved into a new area where they have no relationship, no sense of community. It's one of those unfortunate things. But the truth, it really is something that is unavoidable in a way. It's really unavoidable. No matter, you can't legislate anything. You can't do anything to really stop that from happening. It's going to happen one way or the other. What we have to do is educate people. We have to really educate homeowners on the value of their house, the value of their community, and allow people to take pride in their communities, because the only reason they're selling to someone else is because the thing that the offer that someone else made to them for their house is enough incentive for them to move. That's the only reason. Definitely. People only make decisions when it's beneficial enough to them to take that decision versus not taking the decision.
Everybody's got a price.
Exactly. Now, if we teach and educate people to value and take pride in their communities, then they're gonna not really want to even sell. They're gonna want to stay in the community. They're gonna take care of the communities. They're gonna make sure everyone's looking out for each other, minimizing crime, things of that nature. It takes time to get to that point, but that's really what has to happen. It's not about, gentrification is ruining, people's lives and things of that nature. That's not solving anything. We have to it starts with education, educating people. And I'm working on some things in Clayton County, actually, with the commissioner, and we're going to really start doing some grassroots efforts to help build more of a sense of community there. And the reason I'm working with him, because I do a lot of things with this nonprofit called Amazing Grace, and they're based in Clayton County, and they're very close with the community there and the commissioner and things of that nature. And so we're just working together to, try to put our minds together and see what we can do to really, because if you know anything about Clayton County, some parts are okay, some parts are not so great, right? It's a community that has just not seen the same level of appreciation as other parts of Metro Atlanta. And so why is that? Right. And one of the major reasons is people are not taking pride in what they own. The homeowners there, and a lot of them are not even owners, they're renters. It's a very major rental market. But we have to teach people to take pride in what they own, take pride in their community, and build it up from the inside out versus from the outside in. You see what I'm saying? So that's how I look at gentrification.
Yeah, and it's hard to build something, to take pride in something that you don't have perceived value in.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I had my car, and it's a decent car, but I'm not cleaning it every week. I'm not, maybe I'll leave some, trash in there every once in a while. But if someone gifted me like a Ferrari or something like that, that I would be washing that thing every couple of days. I'd be keeping it up. And so because of my perceived value of it, and like the outside perspective is much greater. And so if people are in like this crappy house that they've had for 10 years or whatever, and they just see that it's kind of been deteriorating, they're not, they don't have pride in like really fixing it up and making it better, because they're just kind of like, what's the point? It's still, I'm just polishing a turd at this point. There's no point. But another thing that is kind of interesting, I listened to my friend Matt. His name's Matt B. Davis. He has a podcast called the Atlanta Podcast, and he's talked about gentrification a decent bit on his episodes. And one of the things they talked about was the Atlanta Beltline. He did a podcast with the guy who created the Atlanta Beltline. Wow. I forget his name, but he was the main guy who had the idea for it. And it was really interesting because he had some interesting perspectives on it. And, because Matt was coming from a perspective of like, gentrification's kind of fucked up. Like, we should try to, avoid that as much as possible. And this guy was kind of coming at it from a perspective of like, it's unavoidable, dude. Yeah. Like, it's just a fact of the cycle of how things work. Yeah. And a lot of times what happens is, that I hadn't realized, is a lot of times in these poor areas or cheap areas where you can buy real estate for cheap, like artists and people like that will move into those areas because it's very cheap. They can get studio space, and they end up being the ones that kind of make the area cool. Yeah. They'll have like cool art installations, or they'll make, cool things where people want to be around that area. And then once it becomes quote unquote cool, then that's when the money moves in and people are like, oh, this area is really dope. Like, they've created this cool kind of community. And then the prices rise. And then, like you said, it kind of kicks the people out that have been living there the whole time. And so it's not necessarily anyone's bad intentions or like this big conspiracy, like, oh, we're trying to get all these poor people out of this area because we want to live here now. It's like, it might feel that way to those people, but it's really just kind of like a progressive cycle. Yeah. And like you said, it's like perceived value, and people are going to pay for what they think the value is.
Yeah, absolutely. And my issue with the whole concept of gentrification is it's pitting the rich against the poor. And it's an age-old, it's an age-old thing. It's always been there, the rich versus the poor. It's an age-old struggle that's never going to go away, right? And it's really a thing that it really takes people's attention from the real issue. The real issue is not rich versus poor. The real issue is poverty. I don't care about someone coming in, richer than me and whatnot. I don't mind that, right? What I care about is solving the issue of poverty itself, because poverty, it's terrible, man. It's something that I've seen firsthand, and it's a cycle. It's hard to break out of because it self-reinforces. You're poor, you are around poor people. The same mindset kind of just reinforces itself, and it's that scarcity mindset is the mindset of, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're never going to get there. It's a very defeating mindset, right? And I'm not saying that being poor is like you have a defeating mindset, but the culture around the areas that are very poor, that's really usually the culture around it. It's a culture of not really encouraging people to pursue what they want to pursue. It keeps people down, a crab in a bucket type mentality. It's something, especially me as a black person, I see that in the black community a lot. It's an issue where, people are starting to elevate. Now the people that are below them are starting to pull them down because no one likes to feel inadequate. It's in our human nature. It's how we're wired. It's a very primal thing. We don't like to feel less than below someone. And when we feel beneath someone, we always try to do something to compensate for it. It's just in our human nature. And what happens is sometimes when you have areas where there's very affluent area here and very low class area here, when they're right next to each other, that's where that's where crime happens, because the people that are poorer, they see the people that are richer and they see that they have more and they feel like why do they have so much? They don't deserve that. They didn't earn that or whatever. And so let me take from them so I can compensate for me, for me not having that. And so that's where crime happens. It's not about, poverty doesn't cause crime. Right? It's differences in income or differences in hierarchies of income or net worth or whatever. And so when there's that disparity, that's where crime happens. This is statistically proven. Areas where everyone's poor, there's not that much crime. Areas where everyone's rich, there's not that much crime. But it's just something we have to face in our human nature, that when someone has more than us, we are going to naturally feel inadequate or want to overcompensate for it. And so how do we address that? It's not by making rich people, give away all their money. It's about how can we elevate poor people? I think that's the duty of being a rich person is so that you can help the poor, is so you can elevate those beneath you. When you get to the top, it's your duty to send the ladder back down so someone else can come up too. That's the way I look at it. And so that's why the whole rich versus poor thing is a very flawed argument. It's more so rich helping the poor, rich elevating the poor. That's our duty. As people, as human beings, as we elevate, as we advance in life, we have to help those that are behind us or below us, And when I say below, don't take it as if I'm saying, rich people are above. No. I'm saying in terms of when you talk about specifics like income or just certain specific things, that's what I'm talking about. But poor people are like, I've been around some of the best people that I've met have been very low income people, very poor people. And you learn something from being around poverty, things that you wouldn't learn when you have abundance, right?
Definitely.
And there's this one lady, she has this nonprofit called Change for Humanity. And, I'm starting to work closely with her. And she told me something like she comes from a background where she did come into some wealth, but it's not something she really cares so much for. She cares more about the people and how she can impact the community. And she works directly with some of the poorest communities here in Atlanta. And she said, you learn certain things you learn from these poor people that it blows your mind. And because there's certain wisdom that comes with poverty, right? And so I strongly believe in, if you're in a position where you're in an advantageous position, or you're successful, you have abundance, it's our duty to really just find any ways we can to send that ladder back down to help those people that are below or are trying to get to where we are. And because you'll learn, first of all, you'll learn something in the process. Second of all, you'll impact someone's life immensely, and not just their life, but the lives of people around them, because they see that this person did it. Now I can do it too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I like how you had the analogy of a ladder, because also like the ladder going down, like the person still has to choose to climb it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not like you're grabbing this person out, because the fact of the matter is, like it all is, at the end of the day, a lot of it is mindset too, because a person that is stuck in poverty or whatever, it's weird how we tend to even say like, this is a poor person, but they're just a person that happens to be poor. Like poor does not define them, and that's we see that evidence all the time, because there are people that can come out of it. And of course, opportunities that are afforded to those people are how they get out. Yeah. But a lot of people, when an opportunity, like you said, a poor person passing over opportunities repeatedly, it's because they're stuck in that cycle where they see an opportunity, but they don't see it as an opportunity, and they see it as something that is gonna, oh, that's stupid or whatever. And so if you put that ladder down, there will be people that will climb up, but there's also, it's unfortunate, but there's also people that are just gonna stay where they are and not take the opportunity.
Yeah, and oftentimes all it is that some people just haven't been exposed to certain things. All they've seen is the same thing every day, all the time. They don't know that, oh, they could do this and they could become successful. They just don't see it. It doesn't happen in their community. There might not be any engineers or scientists or doctors or anything in their community or in their family. So they never see it. But someone else, they grew up around it and it's like, oh, this is normal. This is the thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's all about just,
it's very true.
Giving people the opportunities, giving them the ability to elevate themselves. Once they see someone do it, then they feel encouraged. Okay, I can do it too. Then it just starts to snowball on itself. That's really what we have to do. And so one thing that I'm super passionate about is how can we solve this issue of poverty? How can we, throw this ladder back down and give people the chance to rise up? That's why the reason that I love real estate, because it does give people that opportunity, because you can believe it or not, you can make money in real estate with little or no money. It's something that doesn't require you to be, some kind of wealthy, lofty person or whatever.
Yeah.
You can do it with nothing. I started with nothing.
I was going to say, so how do you approach real estate when you're coming from a place of not really having any assets to invest or anything?
So this is going to be, if you haven't learned anything about real estate or the wholesaling side of real estate, this is going to blow your mind. So the key is not to own real estate. The key is to control real estate. You can control real estate without owning it. And how do you do that? So you can control real estate through contracts and paperwork. You can control an asset through paper. You see it all the time. It's nothing new, but it's something that we haven't been really conditioned to really understand. You can control a real asset with a piece of paper.
So how do you go about that?
How do you do that? So the way you do wholesaling in especially my business model. So we typically what we typically do is we find a property we like, we approach the owner, we make them an offer. If they're happy with the offer, they're ready to move forward. Great. Then we start the paperwork process. We sign a contract with them and say, hey, we want to buy this property at this price. Great. So we make them the offer, they accept it. Now we have a contract. So what can you do with that contract? You can buy the property, of course. That's what it says. It says you will buy the property on this day. Now, what you also have is what's called equitable interest. So what equitable interest is because you have a contract on this property, you have an interest in the property in some way, shape, or form. You have an interest in the property, and you can actually sell your interest in that property. Same way you can sell, let's say you have an interest in a company, right? You have a certain, stake in the company, you can sell that. You can sell your interest in that contract, in that piece of paper that says, oh, you are going to buy that property. And this happens all the time, especially in the commercial real estate realm and in bigger types of real estate, but people just don't know it. But this happens all the time. So essentially that contract gives you the right to buy the property. Now, you can go ahead and buy the property and do whatever you want with it. Or
if you don't have the money, let's say you don't have
the money, then you can sell your interest. You can sell your interest in that contract. So the way
you have to find a buyer that will essentially buy you out of your contract.
Exactly. So the way I do it is typically, because I've been in the industry, a couple of years now, I know a lot of people. I've made a lot of relationships and connections. I don't even have to go out and look for people to buy properties from me. I already have them. They're already there. It's just, I know what they want. If I come across something that fits the criteria that they typically buy, then I will make sure I get the property under contract, secure it with a contract. Now I can go to the other investor and say, hey, and then let me pause here. What I'm saying here is not legal advice. Make sure you consult with an attorney in your state, licensed attorney. Consult with anyone that's an expert in the legal field, because this varies state to state. This varies place to place. You don't want to, take what I'm saying and assume you can do it where you live. You can typically do this anywhere in the country, but you just want to make sure that you're doing things legally. So this is not legal advice, just a disclaimer. But so moving on. So now that I have interest in this property, I can sell my interest to one of my investors or partners. I can say, hey, I have this property, I have the contract on this property. I'd rather not, put too much cash into it and close and, fix it up and all that stuff. I'm looking to just sell it now. And so you can buy my interest in this contract or in this property, and you just pay me this fee, pay me X and X amount of fee.
It's like almost like a finder's fee or whatever.
Almost. And the way you look at it is the fee is for selling your interest in the contract. You're not getting paid for the property. You're getting paid for the contract, the interest in the contract.
How much of a markup is that typically?
Oh, it can vary. It totally depends. So the way I look at it is, if something's a good deal, it will sell, right? And so if you get something at a price level where it's a good deal for whoever buys it, if you get it for anything less than that, that's just profit for you. So I always try to get things at such a price point where I know that if I sell it at X and X price point, it's a good deal for my end buyer, right? But I'm going to get it at a certain price point where it's less than that so that I can make a spread on that. And so that's the way I look at it. And so it can vary greatly. You know, I know people that have made, you know, tens, sometimes over six figures on one transaction. And it's only because the properties typically require a lot of value add. The more value add something requires, the more room there is for profit. Because like I was telling you about, there's that discrepancy in the perceived value of whoever's selling it and the person buying it. So if I had a house, right, a little shack, you know, on a piece of land somewhere close to the city, let's say, you know, I would think it's really, you know, nothing great. It's not a great property. Now, a real estate developer can approach me and say, hey, I want to buy that property. I'll be like, why would you want this? It doesn't make sense to me because I don't see the value in it. But a developer, they're going to tear that thing down and build something new. That's maybe $1 million house. And I wouldn't know. I couldn't wrap my mind around that because I don't have that expertise or knowledge. And so pretty much the developer comes in and is able to get it for a great deal, but it's still a great deal for me because I didn't value it very much. So I got what I wanted and they got what they wanted at a great deal. And they're going to go ahead and build $1 million house on it and make a ton of money, you know, sometimes hundreds of thousands on one transaction, right? This happens all the time, right? And so the key is just understanding what is a good deal. What is a good deal? You know, with real estate, the valuation is based on the comparables. It's based on what is selling around it. So if a house is located in neighborhood A, you want to look in the neighborhood A and look at what's selling in that neighborhood. What have properties sold for in that neighborhood? You want to look at how long were they on the market? How long did that property take? You want to look at the types of renovation that property had. You want to look at so many different variables just to make sure the property you're trying to evaluate is similar to those other properties. And you don't want to go too far back in history. You want to look at things that have sold typically in the past 6 months, not too far back. And so what that allows you to do is create a picture of or an somewhat accurate prediction of what this property can sell for potentially. It's not going to guarantee you anything. Even appraisals, if you get an actual appraisal, it has no guarantee that property will actually sell for that. And so it just gives you an idea of the range that you can sell it for. So if I know a property A can sell for $150, right? And if I'm able to get the property for $100,000, right? Then, okay, there's about 50,000 equity. Now, that's not all going to be realized because some of it is going to go towards commissions once the property is listed. Some is going to go towards, if you're using financing, you have to pay the interest on the loan and things of that nature. There's going to be some quiet costs that you don't see, but those are real costs that you have to account for. And so you want to make sure that you're at a price level where after all those costs, you still have room to make money, right? And so typically, the formula I like to use is 70% of the after repair value. So whatever the house is going to be worth after it's fixed up, that's the final value. I want to take 70% of that, right? 70% is where I start. And then from there, I subtract what is going to take to get it to that value, to get it to that point where it'll sell for that, 150 or whatever. And so if 70% is kind of the starting point, then I just subtract the repairs. And that's where I end up is the maximum that I want to offer. That's the most I want to pay. Because 70%, that's the ratio most investors are looking for. Because at that point, you have some room to, have those extra costs like the commissions, closing costs, cost of financing and things of that nature. You have room for that. And then you have room for profit. That room for profit is usually between 15 to 20%. That's the typical return on investment an investor wants to make. right? And so that's just a standard in the industry. When you're talking about flipping houses and things of that nature, most house flippers want that kind of ratio. And so I always look at that ratio, reverse engineer it, and then wherever I end up, I try to get it for even less, right? I try to get it at a point where I can make a profit because I'm bringing value by actually finding the deals. Because little do people know, it's very hard to find deals in this market right now. It's a very hard market. You have to spend a lot of money on marketing. You have to, have a team. At least it helps to have a team. I used to do it all by myself, but now I have a team. So there's overhead that I have to incur, my systems, different things. It can be very expensive, but that's what you have to do. That's what it takes to really get deals, good deals in this market right now. When it's a seller's or when it's a seller's market or a hot market, you have to do more to find good deals because they're harder to get. And so I'm incurring a lot of costs to even find the deals. So that's why I make money on my end, and then the investor that buys it ends up making money too. But I'm making money because I brought the value of bringing them a deal that's going to make them money. You see what I'm saying? So, I'm coming from a position of someone that can help you make more money. I can help bring more revenue to your business. I can find you the deals you're looking for, and I can deliver them to you in a very smooth and easy transaction. So that's the value I bring as a wholesaler, quote unquote wholesaler. And now there are going to be opportunities that come by where it's like, why would I sell this off when I can take advantage of the full potential profit? Because when I wholesale a house, I'm only making a fraction of what could be possibly made. Now there's those opportunities where it's like, I'm getting at such a good deal. It makes more sense to actually acquire it and do whatever value add it takes to get it to the final value, and then just resell it that way. That's called fixing and flipping, right? It's not really my business model right now, because I'm looking more to build capital, build cash flow for the future, because I'm looking at where the market is right now. It's a very hot market, very competitive. And so I want to just stack up my money right now. And then once the market kind of lowers and softens a little bit, then that's going to be the prime time to start actually acquiring assets. Because my thing is, there's active versus passive income, active income versus passive income. Active income is great. You can make plenty of money doing things actively, working. What I do is pretty much work. It's like I'm actively doing things, right? But you want to get to the point where your income is passive, right? I want to get to the point where you're starting to buy properties that you can just rent out and not have to think about. You just get a check each month. That's where everyone should work towards, because you're not going to be able to do what you're doing in your young days or whatever forever. You're going to eventually, you're going to get old. You're going to not have the energy and not have the time to really do it. So I'm always thinking about that. So it's like, how can I position myself in a position where, okay, I can start acquiring this passive income? And so everything I do right now is active income, right? But it's with the end goal of acquiring the passive income. So eventually my end goal, I want to start buying apartment buildings, commercial buildings, things of that nature, because that's where the passive income comes into play. But to do that, of course, it takes money. It doesn't come out of thin air. And it takes also credibility if you're going to raise money, because you can always raise money, but you have to be credible in front of your lenders or your investors before you can even, present them something or an opportunity. Because the worst thing you can do is not live up to your promise or not live up to your word. That's why I'm very careful of how I do my business, because I want to make sure I do things with integrity. And if I'm going to present an investment opportunity to someone, I know that I can deliver. I know I can get it done. One of the latest one we did in December, we actually were able to raise money, through an equity partner, and they trusted me so much. They put up all the money. I didn't spend anything out of pocket, but it's because of that trust that I built. I've done prior deals with them. I've built a trust in them where they know I'll deliver. And so that's how they were able to trust me enough to foot the entire bill of the house and still share the profits with me and things of that nature. So that's the mindset you want to have. How can I build myself as someone that's credible, someone that has a track record, a proven track record? Because we live in a world where you can't expect people to trust you. Trust is essential, but you can't expect people to trust you right off the bat. You have to, it's your burden. The burden is on you to prove that you're trustworthy. And so everything I do in this phase in my life, I'm a 23-year-old kid. Who would trust me with their money? Who would trust me, right? I'm only 23. I'm still in school. I'm not anywhere in life yet, but once I show my proven track record, they'll be like, okay, this person knows what they're doing. This person can hold an actual conversation. This person has sacrificed and, they have skin in the game. And so I can trust this person. So that's how you want to think. And I wasn't always like that. I was like, I want to make money now. I want to be rich. I want to be successful. But you have to pay your dues, And so basically I say this to say, like, with real estate, it's not a short-term play. It's a long-term play. It's a long-term game. The people that are in it for the short term, they usually go out of business very quickly. I'm in this for the long haul. And so I'm thinking of what is my long-term strategy and how can I reverse engineer that to a short-term strategy? And so my short-term strategy right now, the wholesale business model works very well. It's an arbitrage. It's quick turnaround. I'm not tied up for several months. The problem that arises when you're in bigger deals, bigger transactions is the people don't talk about this, but the problem becomes cash flow. I learned this from one of my mentors. He's like, people don't talk about it, but once you get in these bigger deals, developments and, construction, things of this nature, you're going months without income. What are you going to do when your cash flow stops and you have no reserves, right?
Exactly.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And so that's something we have to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I think it was like episode 6 of my podcast. I did a podcast with my friend Parker, and he owns a company called Barrington Acquisitions where they do a combination of things, but he talked about how like he has certain rental properties set up that's kind of his passive income so that he still has cash flow. And then he also has properties where he's doing a lot more long-term kind of things where he's still got the passive income on this part of things, and whatever, if things go wrong, he's still got these rentals, but he's also doing active things on the other side to do maybe a little more aggressive or whatever, but also so he still has the cash flow on this one end, but on the other side of the business, he's doing other things.
It's so important. Yeah. And so you always want to look at things from a holistic standpoint. You want to think about what could go wrong. If you're only thinking about what could go right, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Those are the people that get hurt the most.
Definitely.
So the economy is great right now. Let's be honest. The economy is pretty good right now. It's pretty strong. But it's not always going to be that way. I'm always thinking about what will I do when the economy crashes.
It's been good for too long. It's been good for a while.
Yeah, we're due for a correction. We're due for something. Something's going to happen. And honestly, my prediction is, and there's no way to tell the future, but I do know that this cryptocurrency phenomenon is going to really shake up the economy and the world as we look at it.
Yeah, it's already disrupting so much.
Yeah, it's a very disruptive technology. So things are going to shake up. So we have to be prepared for it. That's why I'm reading up on cryptocurrency, learning about it. I have a few investments here and there in it. Not because I think it's going to make me rich overnight, but because I know where the world is headed, and I'm not going to be naive to think that, the way things are how it's going to be forever. You have to think about what the future is going to hold and respect it, because it's going to come by surprise and you're going to be like, oh man, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that.
Yeah. I was going to say, you mentioned that you were at Atlanta Tech Village kind of talking about some different things like disruptive kind of stuff. What kind of things do you see like in the future that are going to be big time disruptions or big time things that most people are not really thinking about?
Oh, AI. Artificial intelligence, that's going to be huge. There's so many advancements coming along in artificial intelligence, and the main debate that they were having is, do we trust computers or technology? Do we trust robots or whatever? And there's two schools of thoughts. Some of them were saying, no, we don't trust them. But some of them were saying, yeah, we do trust them. Think about it. We always have our phones with us. The phones are always listening. Our phones are always listening to us. If you don't know, they're always listening. Apple, Google, they're all listening to us at any moment, and we just don't know it, right? And we still have it. Even once I learned that, it didn't bother me. I still keep my phone with me everywhere. I use my computer every day. I type stuff into Google that I wouldn't tell the average person. I ask very personal questions to Google that I wouldn't ask anyone else, any human being. So it's like when I think about it, I actually trust my computer more than I trust human beings, but to an extent though, right?
And it wasn't always that way. Like it has gotten to this point.
Exactly.
Out of convenience, because like the pros outweigh the cons. Like, I've heard of interesting topics where they say like, if regulations were put in place ahead of time, we wouldn't have had to make so many of these trade-offs. Because like some of these trade-offs wouldn't necessarily have had to happen. We still have the power of the internet without Google knowing everything about us so they can market to us. But at the end of the day, it's a capitalistic society, and that's how they make their money. We're their products, and they sell us to advertisers and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I definitely agree. AI is going to be a huge huge disrupting factor. It already is in certain ways, but you know, and of course you got the Elon Musks of the world that think AI is going to destroy us all, but he thinks that we're awakening the demon. I think that's what he called it, something like that. But you know, who knows? But yeah, I definitely agree. AI is going to change the game for so many different industries.
We have to be ready for it. I mean, a lot of jobs are going to be lost. Mm-hmm. It's like, it sounds like a, you know, nice and gravy thing. Oh, AI, computer, robots, whatever. That's great. I mean, that's amazing actually. But we have to also look at there's always a cost to everything.
Of course.
People are going to lose jobs. People are going to, you know, starve. People are going to really struggle during that transition. But it's a transition that's going to happen. It's going to be very hard to stop. Mm-hmm. But so the best we can do is educate ourselves, educate the people around us, be prepared for it. Because the people that are prepared are always better off than the people that are not prepared in every scenario, in everything.
Yeah. And I think also, like, you know, to go back for a second, also like with the college thing, a lot of colleges are selling kids. I mean, if you think about it, they're selling people degrees for jobs that are not going to exist in 10, 20 years. It's just a fact. Like it's just a fact. And I think the best way you can prepare yourself is to look into these types of future technologies. Maybe your dad was a financial analyst or whatever, but like those jobs like might not be available because a computer can crunch the numbers and do everything much faster for way cheaper. And so you got to look, and also with future technology, more jobs are going to be created as well, because there's going to have the people that run the companies that are doing that kind of stuff, or work on the technology that's being created and all that. So, you know, with every crash and with everything, there's always a rise for opportunity, of course.
And the way I look at it, I was having this conversation last night with one of my good friends, and I was like, you know what, this is very necessary, because if you look at history, you know, some of the jobs that we were doing were like factory workers, some laborious things that have now been phased out by technology and machines, right? That sounds like a bad thing, but at the same time, it's like, that's such a good thing for humanity, because humans, like I said, we have a limited resource called life. We have very limited time. What is our highest and best use? I always look at things, because I'm an investor, so I always look at things, what is the highest and best use? This is a very important concept in real estate, especially. You look at what is the highest and best use of a property or a thing, right? And that's because there's scarcity, there's limited resources, so how can you use that limited resource the best, right? And so we as humans, is our best use really, you know, putting things together mechanically, or like lifting heavy boxes and things of that nature? Is that our highest and best use? Or is our highest and best use more so creativity, you know, art, things that are higher levels of thinking?
Yeah. Entertainment,
you know, things that allow us to explore the full extent of our humanity, you know, reach the depths of our human or our intellectual capacity. That stuff is because people get so into the, you know, the day-to-day, the mechanical task, the mundane. We stop thinking about the abstract and the larger, higher levels of thinking. And what machines are allowing us to do is take our attention away from the technical, mechanical tasks into doing higher level thinking. And now we're creating things. We're creating robots. We're creating AI. And by creating AI, we have to, you know, to create a replica of a brain, you have to think on a much higher level than you would, you know, just lifting boxes or whatever. And so,
agreed.
You know, it's elevating us to a higher level of thinking. That's why human beings, we're at the top of the food chain, because we are at the highest level of thinking and intelligence. That's what makes us human beings.
And we're able to conceptualize future, and we're able to, like, that's one thing that a lot of animals can't do, is they can't conceptualize the idea of delaying gratification. Like if they kill an animal, they're gonna eat the whole thing right then. They're not gonna save any of it for later. Like
that's
us,
so powerful.
Like we'll realize, like, oh, I can save some of this elephant that we killed now, so that in 10 days I'm not hungry, whereas before we would just eat the whole thing then, and then 10 days we're like starving again. And so that's one thing that, you know, separates us, is we can conceptualize these complex ideas of, because the future's not, I mean, not to get too crazy and out of the box, but like the future's not actually guaranteed. It's not actually even real. It's not tangible, but we can conceptualize all these ideas and thoughts and all this stuff. And I totally agree that it's just elevating all humans to a higher potential, higher level. We can't stay stuck doing all these mundane tasks that don't really stretch our brains, that don't actually require anything of us. They're just, you know, very simpleton types of activities.
Yeah, and you have to expand your perspective. Perspective is so huge. When you're stuck doing the mundane, tedious tasks, you're missing out on the opportunity to look from a higher perspective. My first job, I was opening boxes, putting items on shelves in a store, in a retail store. That was my first ever job, and it's like not every role or job is conducive to empowering us as human beings. If I did that for the rest of my life, I probably wouldn't be the most impactful person in the world, right? Because my perspective is focused on taking items, putting them on shelves, taking items, putting them, mechanical tasks, things that are eventually probably going to be phased out, right?
Of course.
Now, if I shift my role, and now that I'm an entrepreneur, business owner, now I have to look at things from a holistic, higher level standpoint. I have to create systems, I have to create processes, I have to manage people, right? Now, because I've elevated the level of my thinking, now I see the world in a new light, and I see things from a broader perspective. So every decision I make, I have a broader perspective on the impacts each decision makes. When I was doing, the whole, retail job thing, I just didn't have a very, very good perspective on life. I thought, everyone above me is, selfish, and, I deserve more, blah, blah. Like, I was so selfish. I was so self-centered because I didn't have perspective. I didn't know what it looks like to look from above and look down, right? Mm-hmm. The higher your perspective goes, the more you see, the greater your vision is. And you need that, or else you're going to be too self-centered. You're going to be in your own world. But when you see the rest of the world, this massive world we have around us, that's when you start to think on a higher level. You start to have more empathy for the person that lives across the continent from you or across the ocean from you. You start to see things globally. We're moving towards a global society. We have to. There's going to come a time where, all these isolated countries are going to start to integrate into the global economy. Mm-hmm. It's going to change the way human beings interact with other human beings. And it has to happen. That's the only way we can combat things like nationalism. When I say nationalism, I mean in terms of like comparing to racism, like, oh, my country's better than yours type of thing. Exactly. I'm not saying nationalism. I don't know the exact definition, but I could be misusing it. But basically, where I come from, Ghana, there's not racism, it's tribalism, right? And so it's tribes kind of have beef with each other. Here it's more racism. Races have beef with each other. And I guess some countries in our world have beef with each other. So to overcome that, we have to become a global, society. But I strongly do believe in each country or each nation having their own unique culture, because that's very important. Culture is super important. But at the same time, we need to understand others.
I think also it's important, but there also needs to be more. I believe in more like open border kind of stuff because the idea that like each country, like in the United States, we have like little mini countries, like we have states, and they all have different laws, and so you could choose to go live in Montana where the laws are maybe a little more lenient. You can have maybe a little more flexibility. Maybe land's cheaper and you can have more land, or you could choose to go live in New York where it's a little more cramped, but and it's a little more liberal, but maybe there's more opportunity or whatever. And so there's different laws, and so we have the choice like to move around a little bit and choose almost like, yo, I don't want to live under this law. I'm going to move to this state. And some people don't view it like that. But I think also having almost like experimental places, we don't really have that opportunity because all the countries and nations are so solidified. There's not as much of a chance for places to experiment with new laws and opportunities. And I think the more like open borders and more open societies we can create, and more, just bigger perspective, more empathy we can have for other people. And like, yo, this guy was born with a crappy deal of the hand. Like we need to give this person an opportunity to come if they want to or whatever. Yeah. And you're living proof of that. Like you were able to come to America. It wasn't an easy process. Of course, America is one of the hardest places to become a citizen, get a residency, all that stuff. But you made it here, and that's what's important. I feel like the more opportunities we can lend to more people, we shouldn't come at it from a scarcity mentality. Yeah. We should come at it as from an abundant mentality. And everyone should be able to come and have opportunity here, regardless of who you are, where you were born, all that stuff. Obviously, if you're bringing bad things in, obviously we need to be careful of who we're letting in, and being sure that they're not going to be malicious intent. But for the most part, I believe in like you said, kind of a more global society, and having more open borders, open laws, open source of most things, because that's how you have to have it.
I love it, man. And honestly, like part of the whole vision and the purpose of me doing what I do and being here at this point in time, I think the purpose of it is not just to, accumulate wealth and just, be good and just relax the rest of my life. The real purpose is really to take what I learned here and be able to pass it on to people maybe back in Africa, back in places that need it most. Mm-hmm. Like I said, when you make it, you have to when you get to the top, you have to pass the ladder back down. And I feel like Africa is that next frontier that after I'm able to, establish what I want to establish here, I also need to pass that ladder back there. Or maybe let's not call it a ladder, let's call it a bridge.
Yeah.
Create that bridge, build that bridge.
Africa is a huge frontier, like you said. And people, I talked about this, like I said, on the last podcast that I just did, that it's funny because people, especially in America, they view Africa as like a country.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, over there in Africa. And it's like, you don't necessarily say that about like other places. Like you don't say all the time, like over there in Asia, you might specify like over in Japan, China, or over there in Europe, like, Spain, Italy, France, Netherlands. But people tend to be like,
that's a
Africa.
good point. Yeah.
Like this is just one place. And so you're right, man. Like I think there's like 1 billion people in Africa, right? Maybe even more. Like it's a huge chunk of our population, of our global population. And there's so much opportunity happening.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that's interesting that I've heard about is in a lot of countries that are in poverty, they like SIM cards and minutes are a form of like currency, like for phones.
Wow.
Because like it's a form of like digital currency almost, because they don't have like credit cards and stuff, but like minutes on a phone are worth a monetary amount. And so they'll actually buy up like SIM cards and minutes on phones and like use that as like some sort of weird little currency. It's kind of funny, but I want to. I feel like we had an awesome episode and an awesome conversation. Kind of want to wrap things up a little bit, but I know you mentioned that you're working with some like other organizations to help people and stuff like that, and I think you mentioned 2 of them.
Yeah.
Do you want to just talk for a second about those and like what they're doing and how they're actually like helping the communities and stuff like that?
Yeah. So Amazing Grace Evangelical International Ministry, it's a nonprofit that is based in Clayton County. They have a resource center there, and the main purpose is to kind of improve the community, help the people that are less fortunate. They do little events here and there that allow especially young people. There's one in the summer that goes on called the Choice Program, where all the young people in the community can come together, learn from, people that are like have been there and done that, people that have made mistakes, have gotten to where they are. It's like people that speak are lawyers, sometimes scientists, sometimes judges, sometimes police officers, and different things. Give them advice, give these young kids advice, and the truth of what to do in life, and what to avoid, what mistakes they can make, and how to avoid them, and things of that nature. So they also do like food drives and stuff. They feed the homeless, and so Amazing Grace, that it's run by an aunt of mine, and she's such a great person, and she's dedicated her life to it. And so I do whatever I can to come support her, help out with the events and things of that nature. And I just want to increase the involvement that I have in it, and do some bigger things. But right now it's focused in Clayton County, but it's eventually going to expand. Then the other one, it's called Change to Humanity, and that's run by a lady named Giselle. And she's such a great lady. We actually were so touched by her that we bought her a painting for Christmas, and we gave it to her last week or so, and she was blown away by it. And so we decided, we need to do some good things with her. She's in the area of Bankhead. That's the area that she focuses in. And if you know anything about Bankhead, it's not the it's a rough area. Let's just put it that way.
It sounds wealthy. Bankhead.
Yeah, you'd think so. But if you know anything about Atlanta, Bankhead it's a rougher area, and she's in the field, like out there, from a grassroots approach, feeding the homeless people and giving them opportunities and ways to volunteer and help clean up the community and different things. She's getting people involved in. So she's doing so many great things, and my heart just is with her vision. My heart is with it, and I want to continue to work with her. And then there's this other one called Connect for Change, and that one is run by one of my good friend's mom, actually, and she's a pastor. But it's mainly centered around entrepreneurship, business ownership, things of that nature. And it brings speakers and different people to come and talk to anyone that is interested in learning from people that are already there, and can connect them with the right people, because it's not just about knowledge, it's also about relationships and connections. Huge. And
Totally.
so this organization, it does events about quarterly or so, every once in a while, and they're always amazing. They're always great, and basically it helps people meet the right people that they need to be connected with. And so I love being a part of that too. And so those are the main organizations right now that I'm typically involved with, but I'm open to getting more involved with other organizations and find any ways that I can, use my time, use my my impact to, have a greater impact on the world.
That's awesome, dude. If people want to reach out to you or work with you, or maybe they have an organization that they think you'd be interested in or whatever, what's the best place to reach out to you or follow you or all that kind of stuff?
All right, so you can shoot me an email at my business email, which is info@kingdomacquisitions.com. So that's info@kingdomacquisitions.com. You can add me on Instagram, which I think my Instagram username is Josiah, that's spelled JOSIAH_Q. I believe that's my Instagram.
I'll make sure to link it too in the description and everything.
You'll put it up there. You can add me on Facebook. It's just Josiah Quansah. That's my username. And so those are the best ways to reach me. And you can also call me on my cell phone. I mean, I don't mind putting that out there. 404-454-0793. That's 404-454-0793. So if you have any, if you need any advice, if you're interested in real estate in any way, whether you want to be an investor, you want to be a realtor, I can connect you with Brooke. Brooke, since she's my realtor, she's my sales manager. She's awesome. She's amazing. I'll connect you with her, and she can get you set up with that. And, if you just want to get into investing, I can give you the little that I know about it. And I don't mind doing that. I don't charge anything. I just believe in helping any way I can with the resources that I have. So those are the best ways you can reach me.
That's awesome, dude. Yep. Well, is there anything else that you want to say, or anything that we didn't talk about, or anything like that?
I'll just say this.
Or closing message or anything?
Yeah. Closing message. Think about your purpose. Spend a lot of time thinking about your purpose. That is critical and very important. So if you're in a position where you want to do something, you want to, do something big in the world, start with your purpose. Define your purpose. Just clearly define it, write in a sentence or something. Define that purpose and build everything around that purpose. That's how you're going to have an impactful life and a meaningful life. And so that's just it. That's my closing statement.
That's awesome, dude. I really love that. Well, this has been an awesome episode. I learned a lot too. I've definitely learned a lot. And thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed myself.
Of course. Well, we'll talk to you later, everybody.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that episode. I definitely did. And if you want to reach out to Josiah, I'll have everything linked in the show description if you didn't check the information that he just shared. But you just made it to the end. That really means a lot. Making it to the end of the episode probably means that you enjoyed it, you liked what you heard, and that gets me excited because hopefully you got some value out of this, And if you enjoyed this episode and you liked hearing about young people in real estate, then I definitely know you would enjoy going back to listen to episode 6 with Parker Stiles. I talked about him in this episode, actually, and Parker is the owner of Barrington Acquisitions. That's a company that he runs with his wife where they purchase, renovate, and sell or rent out single-family houses and other properties. He has an amazing story of how he went from being an unemployed college graduate to now running a business with multiple employees that pays him while he sleeps. And on that episode, Parker gave us some practical info on how he started his company and what it takes to run a successful business. And that was one of the most popular episodes I've ever uploaded, and I know you will enjoy it too. Again, that was episode 6, called Making Money While You Sleep. Again, if you enjoyed this episode with Josiah, then I think you would also enjoy listening to episode 66 I recently uploaded with Xander Yost. And Xander and I have been friends since we were 10 years old, and he is hands down one of the most unique and unforgettable people that I've ever known. He was an all-star football player in high school, and he got recruited to play at the Naval Academy, and after an injury, he went to go play at Georgia Southern, and while he never actually graduated college, he recently quit his job that was paying him 6 figures a year to start a hedge fund centered around the future of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. Easy for me to say. But during that episode, we talked all about his football journey, working through his injuries, and decision to hang up his NFL dreams, and how he landed that six-figure salary with no degree, and what he is doing now. And again, I think if you enjoyed listening to Josiah and I on this episode, you would really enjoy that one as well. Go check it out. That was episode 66, called NCAA Football Player to Bitcoin Boy. And episode 72 is coming up next with Rachel Woods. Rachel is the girlfriend of Nick Shelby, who was my guest on episode 27. And Rachel works in the chiropractic industry as well, but she's also a yoga instructor and a world traveler. And she has a really powerful story. And not to spoil too much or give much away, but as a freshman in college, her grandmother passed away. She was diagnosed with the precursors to cancer. Shortly after that, she was raped, and all of that led into her developing an eating disorder. And obviously that was the hardest time of her life. We were able to talk about how she overcame those obstacles and why she is thriving and now doing better than ever. And that episode was amazing. I can't thank her enough for being so vulnerable and open with me about her struggles and all that happened to her. And I know people are going to get a lot out of that episode. It's coming out early next week, so stay tuned. All right, that's all I got. If you want to support the show, then that would be awesome, because I like when people support the show. But you can go to iTunes, rate it 5 stars. That really helps me out. Most people, when I ask them, how do you find new podcasts? They're always like, I just find them on iTunes. Well, guess what, people? If podcasts are not ranked highly enough, chances are they're not going to really find me on iTunes, right? So if you like the show and you think that more people would enjoy it, it would really, really, really help me out to go rate it 5 stars. Maybe leave me a comment in there. I read all of those, so if you want to give me some feedback, that's one of the best places to do it. And also, just, share this with a friend. If you have a friend that you think would enjoy this episode, don't hesitate to share it with them, They probably would enjoy it as well. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can go to my website, andrewdeitch.com. It's got links to all of my social media handles and accounts. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening, everybody. I will catch you guys in the next one with episode 72 back in Atlanta. See you later, everyone.
It's a real asset. It's a real thing. It's not just, piece of paper. It's like actual land. And as you know, they're not making any more of land.